That's okay.
Yeah, so I know for Stanford, I'm teaching this quarter, and we just went to password protection
Oh, yeah,
for our
might start
classes
doing that.
because it's yeah, pretty disturbing when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. So I mean that's it. Again, I'm not a medical doctor. I work on other things related to epidemics and disease, but that's my thinking as a citizen of the community.
Um, what are some of the counter arguments you heard on this topic?
I mean, for construction,
Mhm.
I guess trying to keep minimize impacts of layoffs, have fewer people laid off, and allow, I can imagine. I mean, I think in my own neighborhood out here, I can look out my window and just around the corner is a house that seems to be pretty close to completion. And I suspect the family wants to move in. Maybe they were moved out for renovation, that kind of thing. So, I get that. We do have the housing crisis here, affordability. I feel badly for all the people living in RVs on El Camino Real. And so, is there a chance that we can provide a better home for people by providing more below market rate housing? Absolutely. So, I'm in favor of that. And I think we'll be able to continue. But I just, this point in time, which is a special point in time because we know we haven't hit a peak yet. We're seeing growth. We've had very, very little testing. And so we're still at this stage where we don't know the penetration through the community. We know for a fact now that people can infect each other without showing any symptoms. Some of those people are pre-symptomatic, others will probably remain asymptomatic, but we actually don't know the ratio of people that are infected that end up showing no symptoms to those that do. And I think, at the end, it's all this kind of balancing game and risk analysis that you want to do, but we're not able to accurately or even semi-quantitatively capture the risk for proceeding as normal with certain activities like construction. And so the precautionary principle would imply that we should pull back, at least for a short period of time, until we know more about what's going on in our communities. So, what is that? 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Maybe the rest of us stay on the shelter and home lockdown, work from home through the end of May, early June, who knows? And then things that are deemed essential, but not quite at the critical end of being essential, like our medical workers, if those are shut down for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, that just seems to me a prudent thing to do. And that's why I wrote my little email.
Sure. Now, construction workers, like especially like drywall workers, they'll actually wear like protective gear already, right? And a lot of construction people actually wear gloves just because of just how they do construction. So, what's your thoughts on how well are protected are those guys? Because they almost by default, I think just like OSHA rules, they actually have to wear some of this protective gear. What's your thoughts on now they wear for a different reason. I think they wear not to protect against like viruses, but because of there's dust in there and yeah, a bunch of other stuff. What's
you
your
don't want
thoughts
to have a
about
bunch of fine gypsum particles getting deep into your lungs. So
exactly, yeah. So what's your thoughts about, and also a lot of construction workers tend to wear gloves, like leather gloves because they don't cut their hands and stuff like that. What's your thoughts about given that kind of profession
yeah,
tends
I
to
mean that has to help. I've done some construction myself and was a sheetrocker at one point when I was paying my way through college, and I know something about that equipment. And if they have N95 masks on, they're it certainly helps reduce the intake of dust, construction dust, gypsum powder, that sort of thing. Does it stop everything? No. And are you always protected that way? No, I mean, sometimes you'll call somebody over because you're hoisting up some 4x8 sheet of thick gyp board to the ceiling, and it takes 2 or 3 people to get it up there. You're working close. You may be breathing hard. You know, it's better than not having a mask on at all, but it's just when you look at construction going on at many of our sites, it's often very difficult for the workers to maintain real social isolation. And again, that 6-foot number is, you know, the origin wasn't based on exhaustive study of how far COVID-19 viral particles can be transmitted, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Kind of a fallback default number. I mean, you know, to be honest, I was more worried about the large construction sites at Stanford and Cal Avenue. Even, you know, people knew they were supposed to be distancing, but they'd all sit together for lunch, and it's just easy to imagine that some transmission can occur, and then you worry about those guys as well as their families at home. So if it's one person, like, you know, I mean, I'm thinking about putting in some bookshelves one of these weekends here. It's just me by myself, and I'm already here. But again, you know, it may be when you're doing this sheetrock, yeah, you've got your mask on, but somebody's delivering that sheetrock, and they're using the truck to go to the supply, you know, go through the supply chain, and all of those things. Even though, you know, we're trying our best to reduce human contacts, it does erode the efficiency at which we actually can maintain that human contact. So, I mean, I get it. Your questions are really good, Greg, and you know, you have to have people on the construction side really wanting to keep this going so that they maintain their livelihoods. That's why, you know,
well, I think it's a balance between that and also like public health, right? So I think that's also really important too, is making sure that people aren't dying, right? I think in California, relative to like other states, like you look at New York, right? California is doing pretty good, right, compared to New York. And I think the reason why is because we did practice some of that social distancing much earlier than other places. And so we're fortunate because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, we're starting to see early signs that it might actually be effective. But again, you know, the models that are done, like let's say we come up with some multi-parameter metric to define what our effective social distancing is. And let's say it's 74% now. I'm just making that up.
Yeah.
But then, you know, if you say, okay, let's move that 74% number into the model and propagate forward a month, how many people died? And you get a number. And if you drop it from 74% to 72%, you know, it turns out to have a really big impact on numbers of people that have died. You know, as long as we're staying below the threshold that starts to swamp hospitals and overwhelm rapid fire testing where it matters the most, you know, maybe it's not quite as big a deal, but that's where, you know, this question of balancing how essential is it really, you know, with the issue of how important is it to avoid disrupting every element of the economy. And I get that part too. I mean, I really do. I think, you know, the more businesses that shut down and people that are out of work, applying for unemployment, trying to figure out a way to get food for their families, all of that ends up taking pretty significant tolls, including on health. So, you know, you're in the hot seat for making those decisions.
Well, I mean, I think 6.6 million people filed for unemployment, right, last week. And I saw the chart, it's crazy. I mean, it's like more than the Great Recession. It's like more than people say even during the Depression. I mean, it's like a record number of, I mean, I think someone added, I think it was New York Times, they showed like this chart, and it was like, it looks like something totally wrong scale. It was just no comparison, and it's scary. So, but you know, to the point that you're making earlier, I saw this I forgot which person was doing it, but this person on YouTube put like tracing dust on their fingers and stuff, and they showed like just in the course of time, even though they're trying to be very careful, that it gets everywhere. It's just it's
Yeah.
and that's what makes COVID-19 so hard to stop, is that it's so easy to spread. And when they demonstrated this with like this little like dust, and then it has UV light, and they just showed it just getting everywhere, even though people were trying to like try to be cautious.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is hard. I mean, we've had enough examples published in the media, medical journals about super spread events where, there's one person in the choir and 5 days later, half of the people in the choir, up to 40 people, came down with the disease. So, that's part of it too. I mean, again, I think it was good to see Cal garage construction stop, because that employed a lot of people. For some of the residential construction that I've seen in renovations in my neighborhoods, the workers seem to range from 2 to 3 people up to maybe 10 or 12. And it's, the smaller the numbers of people engaging in that work, or let's say it's 2 brothers that are in there to do the taping and floating the mud on the chipboard, the better, right? I mean, they're already kind of isolating, and so does it have to be one size fits all? Probably not. Should we, take a break from most construction that has 4 or more people that aren't related coming together at work sites every day and engage with the supply chain? Maybe that's the way to go. But again, that's more your hot seat for that one.
Yeah, I think I definitely think that there's probably some nuance that could happen.
Yeah.
Like someone doing drywall, they're going to be wearing a respirator. I think by OSHA they have to, right? They have to, and like welders, don't they have to wear a face mask so that they don't, So but then again, to your point, that a bunch of people sitting together and having lunch together, that's also, not, so that's also a problem, right? So so I think there's definitely some nuance going on, but I mean, I'm thinking about also the like construction sites also are kind of like attractive nuisance, right? Like you kind of, it's somewhat of a, like, because they're going to the street, or they're causing disruption, right? So in general, people do want some of the stuff wrapped up, right? Or like some people, they have like the house next to me, they're like kind of like renovating right now, and some of these places will have like debris bins in front of their house, right?
Right.
Which takes up parking, and it's kind of a nuisance, right? So there's some of that stuff going on too. So I think it seems like definitely some parts of construction maybe is okay, some parts of it probably not, and definitely a bunch of people having lunch together probably is not the right idea to have right now. Yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts about, like, I mean, like you said, 2 brothers putting up drywall, probably okay, right?
I think so. What you don't want to have is people living in different households driving long distances in their car, or even short distances, coming up from San Jose or something to go to a work site. Because even maybe at the work site, they can engage in distancing, but they can't do it in the car.
Yeah.
A lot of people do drive together because not everybody has a car.
Yeah.
And then, the nuance there. I mean, I would say I do get the annoyance factor. There actually isn't any construction. I think the most recent example was probably my own home, where we did a fairly minor remodel, and I'm sure it was bothersome for the neighbors. And my wife and I did talk about it, like, oh boy, if this had happened to us and we were almost done, we'd be pushing like crazy to finish it.
Yeah.
And I agreed with that until last week, once I started tracking more of the morbidity and mortality data and the information on transmission. That's when I first started hearing about aerosolized transport, and something you just said, the talcum powder on the hand example, like, it's really hard to control. and we don't yet know everything there is about controlling. We do know that N95 masks can work if they perfectly fit your face. For me, I have to cut my beard off. That's very clear. The respirators used in construction, some of them are probably perfectly, they perfectly fit, others don't. And maybe, you're working with sheetrock and plastering and sanding and plastering and sanding. It generates all this fine dust. A little bit gets into your eyes, and then next thing you know, you're doing this. So, for me, I think you have to filter out that annoyance part, and just human beings do, they can be, persnickety, I guess, at times, and look for reasons to try to have an influence, affect change. I would say the key is to focus on minimizing risk, and for at least a few more weeks, do everything to maximize the efficiency at which we reduce our human-to-human contacts, be it direct in person, breathing, talking, walking too close, or contamination of surfaces, all of that, just being hyper careful, and it's going to save our families and save us heartache down the road. Yeah. I think we're lucky here in Palo Alto. It probably is possible because of our building department and people like you being able to take the time to think about this. We probably have the luxury to institute some of the nuances that you're talking about, right? Like smaller jobs go forward, things that are close to being done that help alleviate a weird living situation for people that are out of their homes. If there's something that's got below market rate housing that's going to be ready to go soon, and we can get people off of the street, that all should go forward. And I guess the other thing I would add, reduced activities in some form of distancing, that's going to be with us until we have a vaccine, right? That's going to go through the rest of 2020. It may be that we get the majority of our activities back and running, but that's the other thing to think about for construction. Like, if there's something scheduled to come online in the summer, maybe we should make it happen, because it provides shelter for people that don't have it now.
Well, one thing I saw that I was actually kind of encouraged by, it looks like they're actually encouraging everyone to wear face masks whenever you're outside, or you're and you look at the countries that have kind of done that, like South Korea or Japan, or let's say Singapore. It looks like the spread has been much better by doing that. So that seems like it's a good practice, right? And so I think that will hopefully allow more normalcy, while we're still waiting for the vaccine to be produced, right?
Oh, hold on just a second. I'm here. Hold on. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah,
no problem.
I'm going to have to sign off. But
thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate your feedback, and thanks for your thoughts. Okay,
okay,
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm okay.